there's no clear answer to that, except that we have free will. We don't have to, be poisoning our planet. We don't have to be causing starvation. We don't have to be causing wars. It's our choice. We can say no. But I think material things rule the world. And until we allow love to rule the world, and compassion and hope and empathy, we're not going to stop the bad things from happening.
Yeah. And I was when I was researching about you, I came across you actually having had like a premonition or a vision, or maybe even a message about things might be happening in the Ukraine. Right. And then when the news came out, it seems that you were, of course, kind of like you had the validation, but on the other hand, this was awful. I wonder with somebody like you that has these, let's call them gifts, Lorna. Okay, these special gifts.
Okay.
This kind of, I don't want to say you have a role or responsibility, but you could be a whistleblower.
Together, we go out there. Together, we begin to share. Together, we find our way. Together.
Welcome back to another episode here on Mentory TV. I'm Patricia Falco Beccalli, your host. And as in some previous episodes, we have already talked about spirituality and also angels. Remember my conversation with Corinne Grillo. She also had an epiphany about angels and teaches now people how to connect with them. Today, though, I have the great honor to speak to Lorna Byrne. She is the author of Angels in My Hair. And if you read up about Lorna, you actually, at least I did, develop many, many goosebumps. You go like, oh my God, is that really true? Does a person like this exist? She's a best-selling author. If you read about her, she is also described as an Irish modern mystic. I just think she is one of a kind, because Lorna, you did not learn how to connect to angels, but already as a child, you just have had the gift to see them, to see what is happening, to feel them, and to also connect with them. So great honor to speak to you. Welcome to the show.
Well, it's my honor to be on your show, and thank you so much, and to all of your audience as well. I'd like to say hello to them. And I think your first question there was lovely. I didn't have to learn in the way that maybe people think you have to learn, because it's like, from the moment I opened my eyes, I saw the angels. But I didn't know they were angels. They were just part of the family in that way. And, lying in the cot as an infant and trying to reach up and touch them, to play. I never actually managed to touch them when I was an infant in the cot. And, sometimes my mom would be bending over and doing something, and seemingly she told me I would be ignoring her altogether, but I understand why. So I have seen angels all my life. It's normal and natural for me. Like, I don't know what it's like for you not to. I can't imagine that in that way. So it's normal and natural. And I suppose when I was a small child, they used to say to me to keep it a secret. And I never understood why I had to keep it a secret. And it was in the sense of, and I didn't realize either that because I was a late talker and my parents brought me to the doctor and everything like that, they, how would I say, I don't like saying branded, but they called me retarded in that way. And because of that, you were ignored completely in school, with family, with literally everything. But I have to say, I had the best teachers in the world. I've had God and the angels, and they have taught me everything I know. I wouldn't be talking to you today only for that.
Yes, and this is a wonderful intro, and you're exactly kind of pre-beating the path that I wanted to go on to, because my first question is, of course, when one as an individual is born and is out of the norm, is special. Okay, the line between the specially gifted, and just being labeled as retarded because it's just something that doesn't fit into the norm is extremely hard. And I was just trying to empathize with you as a child and your childhood, and I was thinking, to see the world in a certain way, and kind of walking around. I imagined you when I was reading it, that you were like a child going around and you had all these angels and everything was happening around you. So you never really focused on your mother or your father or the school teacher and what they had to say, because your world was fuller than anybody else's. But this beauty, A, not understanding it, that it was a beauty, and B, once, you were told it's a secret, you must have opened up at some point, or at some point somebody must have known that you're actually seeing other things. When did that happen? What happened there?
Wow. I actually kept it a secret, because as I grew as a child, I was constantly reminded to keep it as a secret. And I understood, because I heard adults say, and my parents and everyone, she's retarded, she's a vegetable, ignore her. So the angels had told me I must keep it a secret because they said I would be locked up.
Ah, there it is. The angels told you. So
Yeah.
You had a conversation with the angels about what is happening in the real world, in the normal world.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, I think, important for everybody to know, that the secret, keep it a secret message, did not come from the human side, but it came from the angels protecting you.
Sorry, I do expect you to know that. So I'm so glad you explained that. Yes, the angels, they were constantly telling me to keep it a secret. And even as I became a teenager and an adult and everything, and just, one day when I was wheeling my daughter home, like I was an adult, I was a mom now, it was my third child, and the Archangel Michael came up behind me and literally annoyed me, because, when you're a mom and you have a lot going on and you have a baby and little ones to pick up at school. And he just said, Lorna, I have a message for you. And I always remember, wheeling my daughter, holding onto the pram, getting real annoyed, turning around and looking at him and telling him to go away. This was the Archangel Michael. I was literally telling him to go away, that I was busy. And he just said he had a message. And the message was that it was getting, near time for me to write. And, I was an adult woman. I had 3 children. And I could hardly write my own name. I couldn't read or write. And Archangel Michael saying this to me, I thought he was crazy. I thought even God was crazy.
Don't you know me by now? I can't read or write or string.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, how can you ask me this? How did that make sense?
It didn't make sense to me. And he just said, help would be sent. And I suppose all my life I was saying no to God. I'd never actually gone to say yes. But even on that day, I knew within my own heart that one day I would have to say yes. And I guess I was very scared about that, because being considered retarded, being called a vegetable, being ignored, all of that kind of thing, even made it more scary. So I didn't say yes for a long, long time. And a long, long time had passed. It was after my husband Joe died that I finally said yes. And I can tell you, I was as nervous as anything. I just, said to the angels, I can't, I'm really, really scared. They're definitely going to lock me up. And because that's what would have happened in Ireland that time.
Yes.
So I was very scared, but help was sent.
Yeah.
And it was incredible how that happened.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. But before we get to that point, what I would like to try to learn about you, Lorna, is, again, let's go back to your childhood, because what we are today, be it in the good or in the sense of traumas, most of it happened because of our childhood.
Yeah.
And a couple of things, being called a retard, I mean, that is really heavy and severe. And I think just even en passant, hearing something like that, people whispering behind your back marks you for, I think, a long time, if not forever, because that is kind of like a shock that is engraved. First of all, when was it the first time that you actually, as a child, thought, okay, this is a message meant for me? This kind of real consciousness about the communication and also guiding you and what you would do and the choices you would make. When was the first time?
I suppose it's really hard to explain that, because the angels have been there all my life. And I knew one day, even as a very small child, I'd have to say yes. I knew that. But one thing the angels would say to me is when I would hear, friends of my mom's or dad's or people, saying, oh, she's retarded, they would say to me, Lorna, they know no better. And because they would have said those words, they know no better, I loved the person. They taught me not to, what would you say, be angry or anything like that. It actually only made me love anyone who said things like that more.
Well, that is incredible, though. So you as a child had your parents anyway always backing you. So there was no hushing away what you were or how you were from your parents. But if other people would make comments, they would hold the front and they would protect you.
Yeah. My father was great at, he tried to teach me how to write. But it didn't work. He tried to teach me how to pick up something like everybody else. And I was left-handed as well. So that made it even worse in Ireland than we were left-handed.
Sinister. Mm-hmm.
But one thing I always remember, and that is, maybe I'm always guessing my age, because I was very small in height, still am. When I think I was maybe about 2.5, I was running around, and you have to remember I was a late speaker, so I was probably 2.5 when I started to talk as such, but again, the angels were teaching me all of the time. I was in communication with them. And one day I saw my little brother, and he came to play with me. I was playing in front of the fire with little wooden bricks my dad had made. And it was like as if our hands touched. It's like as if his hand went into mine and mine went into his.
We're talking about Christopher now.
Yeah, and it just all sparkled, and I felt so much love. And it was at that particular time that the angels told me that they were angels, and I understood that. And that my little brother, who was actually older than me, playing with me, was the soul.
Yes.
That he had died before I was born.
Exactly. I was just about to say, because Christopher actually, yes, a sibling, but wasn't with you when you were born, but he came to you as a spirit or as an angel?
I remember when writing Angels in My Hair, I wasn't allowed to really use the word soul by the publisher and that, So I had to use the word spirit. But spirit does mean soul as well. Spirit means that word has loads and loads of meanings as such. And because sometimes I would have seen him in my mom's arms when she was asleep in the armchair in front of the fire, and he'd be only an infant, but you have to remember I was so young at that time. I didn't question it because the angels were reminding me constantly, keep it a secret, you mustn't say anything. So I never said anything to my parents or anything.
That's an interesting one, because I was wondering, also reading your autobiography, Lorna, thinking, okay, usually when we, as non-gifted people like you, reach out to the angels, okay, and we are waiting for a message, we're waiting for help, there is something that an angel can bring to you. And you mentioned, I had other teachers, they happen to be angels just before in our conversation. So I wonder, you might not have understood it, but what do you think in hindsight would have been the message for you? Why have you seen your late little brother?
I think that message is for everyone. There's so many messages within Angels in My Hair and within all of the books. But I think that particular one is to help moms all over the world and dads that have lost children, or anyone that has lost a loved one, that it's only the human body that has died. They are very much alive, because he died at 10 weeks.
Yes.
When you think about it, how was he able to talk? How was he able to play with bricks? How did he know so much? At that time when he died at 10 weeks. I think it's to help every human being to realize that there's more to life, that you have this soul, the spark of light of God. That's so tiny. I describe it that way, so tiny, but yet so enormous. It fills every part of you, and it's out there as well.
Yes, and I think in the path of your own life, you had the case where somebody you knew lost a child, and you were very helpful in that moment. Do you want to take us through this?
Yeah, that happens, sadly to say, even today. It happens. I know I have often told the story about Noah since the book came out, and that story goes back a good few years now. But I was doing a talk, I think I was on tour in Germany, and I was doing an event, and I think there was about 700 people there, or 1,000, I'm not quite sure. And I was there early to help to get things ready. And this young boy comes in, this child, with his mom and another person. And when I saw him, I just said, oh, God, should I go over? And I was told no, I was to ignore him. And that seems odd, but I always do what I'm told in that sense, ignore him. So the room filled up, and the talk went on for an hour, and then questions and answers came, and loads of people put up their hands and they asked questions. And then what happened was this young boy stood up. And as soon as he stood up, it was like, this is part of the miracle, because no one noticed him before then. And I couldn't understand why no one saw him before then. It was like as if God made him invisible. But when he stood up, he had some kind of a mesh hat on him with wires. He had something else in him as well, going to a machine. Like, it was just so obvious. And when he stood up, everyone went complete silent. You would hear a pin drop. It was like as if everyone held their breath. You didn't hear, the clearing of throat or a cough or anything like that, just complete silence. And he just said, Lorna, I don't have a question. And I was just looking at him. He said, I just want to tell you, my guardian angel is my best friend.
Beautiful. And did you know exactly what he meant? And do you think the audience did as well?
I think the audience were shocked, and they were shocked into silence, because the next thing he said, which is something we all forget, because we get up in the morning and everything, even if we think things aren't good, they are good. Where this young child turns around and says, Lorna, could you ask God for the gift of life?
All right. Okay.
That's what he was asking for, the gift of life.
Okay.
And I suppose everyone in the audience realized for the first time that they have the gift of life. And this child is asking for the gift of life. And the only thing I can ever do for anyone is ask on their behalf. And of course, I blessed him as I blessed everyone and prayed over him. And everyone prayed as well. And I said to his mom, and that, to come to Ireland to stay with us. So that did happen eventually. And every time he would go back to Germany, the doctors were kind of, this child shouldn't still be alive. So he got about an extra 2 years. And here in Ireland, at my home and the sanctuary, he had a great time. It was like as if his health improved. It's like as if, he became full of light and full of life, and he enjoyed every single moment in that way. But God did take him home to heaven in the end. And I know something I haven't really spoke about is that I was told, Archangel Michael said to me, Lorna, you're to go to Germany to see Noah. And as soon as that was said, I knew time was short. And it really broke my heart, because I gave out to God all of the time. Why couldn't he give this child the gift of life, where he has given others the gift of life? But then that's God's choice. It's not mine. That's why I can only ask on someone's behalf. And it was a surprise for Noah when he opened the door and saw me. He was absolutely delighted. But I think he knew. I know he knew. The angel said he did. We would, here in Ireland and even in his own home, he would just lie on the couch with me, and I would pray, and he'd fall asleep, and the two of us would play games together. He taught me loads of games, card games and all of that kind of thing to play. So in the sanctuary here in Ireland, we have this beautiful, enormous tree that has a red leaf on it. And it was covered in ivy. And Noah helped us to cut it. And then one day he got a big piece of the ivy because it was so old, and he swung himself around the tree. Like Tarzan.
Yeah, absolutely.
That way, he absolutely loved it. And I can't remember who snapped the photo shot.
Mm-hmm.
So this big tree in the sanctuary is called Noah's Tree, and we're planning to put a plaque up with that photograph, not the photograph, but the way they can carve in that way. And we plan to do that for many others, but please God, it won't be too many, because I love when God grants life.
Of course. Yeah, it is an interesting one, because, and it brings me, it's an incredible story, and it's wonderful that, you made the time after you heard Archangel Michael, who is the protector of all of us, right? Tell you, okay, it's about time to maybe visit Noah. And then, maybe looking at the boy, him seeing you, you seeing him, it was a consolidated and a confirmation that things were going to go the way they then eventually did. But for me, what I think is so interesting is, of course, the entire subject of, connecting with the angels and the how to do it. For you, it is a natural. You even pestered, as you were saying, you were pestered by them talking to you like, hey, no, I've got 3 kids. Just don't talk to me right now. By the way, when I was talking to Mark Anthony, the medium, he as well is like, oh my God, so exhausting. I hear them all the time. You talk to me. I just want to go down the street and do my shopping, on the market street and talk about fruit and vegetables, not about what they want to talk to me about. So it can be very exhausting. But, coming back to the question of connecting, for you, it's a natural thing. For us, normalos, as a German would say, it's not. However, is there a how? Is there a right time when you actually know how to? Because you are in a situation where all of a sudden you have that intuition, you have that. Talk to me a little bit about, I don't want to say a process because it sounds very cold-blooded, but how to connect if we need to connect.
Well, how to connect? I believe that everyone, you're already connected. You just, because of the world today, or maybe the world when you were a child, kind of told you, if something is not solid, it's not real. It's your imagination, go away. So you didn't, in a sense, you cut off yourself from hearing that voice, that whisper, that feeling, whatever way it was happening for you. And I always tell people, children see angels. It's just that us adults kind of tell them, no, that's not real, that's silly, all that kind of thing. Because I've met so many children that, when I be doing a talk and at the blessing afterwards, it could be a whole family. And the parents will say, Lorna, will you tell us the name of the guardian angel of our son or our daughters, and I just look at the parents and I bless the child, and then I ask the child, do you know the name of your guardian angel? And 99.9% the child will tell me the name of their guardian angel.
Just out of the guts. It would be like
just out like that. But again, the world kind of is telling them, angels really aren't real. Sometimes the words that are used is you're away with the fairies, things
literally,
like that.
Literally. And it does happen, right?
Yeah, but you're already connected. And I would say for adults, don't question children if they say something to you. Don't do that, because I think what happens there is that sometimes a child is questioned so much then that they stop straight away because they can't take the pressure. But for an adult, you're already connected. To me, I don't think it's any big deal in that way.
I know. I think a lot of people get that it's not a big deal, but to everybody else, and if I may interject just there, Lorna, is, when I talk to my friends or, over a dinner party about angels in general, everybody's exactly like you were saying, show me. And then that's proof. And they want to see or feel with the senses that we've been given, physical senses, hear, sound, touch, smell, what have you. And unless their physical senses doesn't see it or grasp it, it does not exist. And of course, that is absolute, that is so limited and limiting. And you were saying we are all connected, and it's that inner voice. And, we all have that inner voice. And about having that inner voice because you might have had an inkling, but you did something that was rational, or that was just the right situational response to whatever was happening. But in hindsight, it went wrong. And in hindsight, you said, I knew it. I knew it. Why did I make that decision? And is that the inner voice that we all have and tend to ignore?
That is you being told. I would often say you're to go left, not right, or all your friends or the job or whatever's happening is telling you, no, this is the right way to go, and you go that way, and afterwards you remember, I shouldn't have made that decision. I should have gone the way I felt I was to go.
How often don't we do, and why do we make that decision? Why is this free will? It seems to be so much stronger than, what the energies are telling us. And these are also ancient souls that actually have a lot more experience potentially than we have in our conscious lifetime.
Yes, you've mentioned ancient souls, and again, you've the angels, and you've the souls of loved ones, and you've the souls of generations back within your family as well, and sometimes not even related to you. And they're all the time giving us guidance. They're all the time telling us, no, go left, don't make that decision. And we hear that voice. And I would say to everyone, if you give yourself an opportunity to say, what have I got to lose? No matter how skeptic I am, or how much doubt I have, I'll give it a chance. Because some people would say to me, they get this feeling that something is wrong or something is good. The angels communicate with us in different ways. And again, through our senses, that you said, in that way. But they're great teachers. So I'm sure all your listeners on many, many occasions, let's say you love ice cream and you have more or less kind of cut it out quite a lot. But one day, it just keeps coming into your mind, an ice cream. You should treat yourself to an ice cream. Well, that's your guardian angel or the soul of a loved one in and around you actually communicating with you. And they're actually teaching you.
So what are they teaching me?
They're teaching you to respond. Respond. Go and get that ice cream.
So it is about the ice cream. It is not like a hidden message, and the ice cream is a metaphor for something deeper.
No, and that's where I think lots of adults make a mistake. They're all the time looking, well, what does it mean? What's the hidden message? What does it mean? It means nothing. They're only teaching you. It's like my guardian angel saying to me, Lorna, go and pick up the glass of water.
Yeah.
Lots of us won't do that, because we'll say, well, I'm not thirsty. Why would I want to pick it up? Or we would say, or we might be lazy about it, so I don't want to bother.
Yeah, but this is exactly, I like it the way you put it, that, you're on a diet, let's say, and the angels are telling you, go and get that ice cream. You've been good for 5 weeks. Who cares? Treat yourself. And usually it's the other way around. You're being naughty and you have that voice, perhaps the angels saying, well, you don't actually really fancy it. You shouldn't be doing it. You're doing so well on your diet. Just believe it. Just let it run. And you ignore that because you want that ice cream, be it because you always after sport have something, or when you're low, then you kind of try to mood shift with an ice cream. I like the way that you put it exactly the other way around. I love that one.
I put it the other way around. And yes, and the thing is to remember, your guardian angel will never ask you to do anything wrong either. So they won't ask you to be angry with someone or be offensive with someone or to say something that's not nice or to hurt anyone in any way. They'll, to get the ice cream for yourself in that way as well. They were, to treat yourself, to love you.
Yeah, this is what I was asking. Yeah. Is there a deeper meaning to it? Is it not, is the ice cream just symbolizing, look, just it's good, all this rationality, but please don't forget your soul. Please look after yourself. And if you just think about the ice cream, that's us telling you that you might need some TLC, and maybe the ice cream is just the right thing to do. I think this listening to your own voice is an interesting one, and I totally agree that due to socialization or education or whatever of children, we tend to lose it. And I think that anybody living in a certain society does, because rules tend to often overrule what you would like to do, what you think you should be doing, and your inner voice is telling you. So you have to kind of relearn, and that's why I was asking about the connection, not to reconnect, but to re-listen or to listen for the first time and then enact. And I think this is the one that needs to be practiced. So, for example, in my own case, I would definitely, because I'm extremely rational. You were asking me about all of the things that I did. Did I want to do half of what I did intellectually for my achievements? Well, you could argue that there was an inner voice telling me that's a good thing, and the other one, you know what, I would just like to travel the world and, write about beautiful food or spices or countries and cultures. But I didn't do that. So for me personally, to reconnect with my voice, I actually have like a mantra that I totally trust my inner voice and the angels that are trying to come. So I'm trying to say, hey, just Patricia, trust. And that is, if I trust, I'm open to listening. So, I kind of put a step in between saying, hey, they're okay. It is you. It is at the end of the day, you perceiving something that is good for you. That is your presupposto. So this is how you have to approach the whole thing. And so I actually have this mantra, which I do on a daily basis, to
Brilliant.
allow and to get more sensitive to myself. And I think, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna out myself here. So reading your book, and I was trying to, how to connect with angels and to see, well, show me a proof that you are there. And I had this experience, thanks to you, that I tried it. And I said, okay, angels, if you're there, then, make yourself heard, show me something, make me just, like you were saying, that always kind of ruffled your hair. That's why you have angels in your hair. Okay, there was no ruffling with my hair. But I went to bed. I asked for the angels to kind of somehow, appear. In the middle of the night, I swear to you, Lorna, I heard like a bang. And I was on holiday with my husband in the middle of the night. Might have been maybe 3 o'clock, 3 a.m., 3:30 or whatever. And it was the kind of sound like the old light bulbs when they basically burst inside, this click.
Yeah, they burst.
It's the burst, exactly. It's kind of a loud burst click. It's not like a bomb going off or anything, but it's something you hear and you kind of like, anyway. And I just thought, okay, so whatever. And I looked at the watch, and I didn't know what time it was. It was 4:44. It was 4:44 a.m. in the morning. So I didn't know what that meant, but I know that triple numbers are angel numbers. So then I looked up what 444 actually means. In all of these websites, you can read it, and it means angels are trying to communicate with you. I was a little freaked. And I just said, okay, is this now you showing me that you really exist, or is it coincidence? Is it wishful thinking, experiencing, interpreting? I don't know. What you, as a born, angel, mystic connector, would say to an experience like that?
Well, I would say it was an incredible experience you had, and it woke you with a pop. And the main thing was that you looked at your watch, and you just thought for a moment, I wonder, do these numbers mean anything, 444, to do with angels? And you looked up on the internet and you found something, and it said they're trying to communicate with you. And I would say that's definitely a message, no matter what way you find it in that way. But I do know sometimes people, adults especially, what would I say, look for the meaning for something when they're actually not meant to. It's something that they're meant to remember for years to come. Could be 10 years down the road or something, or 5 years.
I can experience something today, but it doesn't have a meaning right now. But
Yeah.
Something will happen and it will bring me back to, oh my God, 10 years ago I had this and that, and now it falls into place.
Yeah, they always bring back to memory what they had shown you or what they had put into your mind or what you had felt. And the thing is, you always recognize it straight away. It's like the memory just hits you, like a flash of lightning in that way. So the angels and even the souls of our loved ones, I love one thing about the guardian angel, and that is that, it can never leave you for 1 second, and it loves you unconditionally. And to your guardian angel, you're number one. There's no one else in the world like you to your guardian angel whatsoever. So that's one thing I always say to everyone. Just be yourself. Don't be trying to copy anyone else. You're unique as you are in every way. But I do love what the guardian angel does as well. It gives us loads of signs. But one thing I love especially is that it calls in, the souls of loved ones, especially if we were very close to someone that had died even years ago, in that sense, not necessarily recently. And I think we forget that we know the essence of that person. We know the smell, we know how they feel, all of that, and lots of people would say, oh, I could feel Johnny's presence at that time, and I knew I should stand back. Especially when you're not listening to your guardian angel, they will call in the soul of a loved one.
That is an interesting one. So they call for support, and one tends to then listen more to the person, or the deceased, or the one that was lost in your life, because you knew them. There's a familiarity, hence a trust. So they look for support to communicate with you, and then people tend to listen.
Yeah, they seem to tend to listen more. It's like, I remember one lady telling me, she loved her dad so much, and she didn't believe after her dad's death in God or angels or anything, and 10 years had passed, and she found a tiny little thing that had belonged to her dad that was a symbol 10 years later. And she said, at that time, we were going through an awful lot, my husband and myself, and, we were nearly breaking up. But because I found that, she said, out of the blue, it was in the back of the drawer that she said she cleaned out often over the years. She did, change it around and everything. And she just said, where did it come from? How did it get here? Is that my dad? And she said she could then feel his presence when she held it in her hand. And she said it changed her life in the sense that she just became so aware that her dad, wasn't just dead. He was alive, but in a different.
He was in a different form. It transcended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said it really helped her, and her husband get through what they got through. But she did tell me something. She said it disappeared. The little locket or whatever it was.
Really? The actual
disappeared. It disappeared on her. She said, I put it back down, and, it was there for a few days, but it disappeared, and I have never seen it again.
What do you make of it?
I would say it was, this was her dad allowing her to find something spiritual, a little symbol, something she recognized that she knew, but it wasn't being left there for her in that sense. It was she only found it because she needed a helping hand. It wasn't something that she would need again later.
So it was a trigger. It was a trigger just to shift her mind.
Yeah.
What I thought was very interesting also in your book, and that was when you were shown Joe, your future husband, early on in your life, almost still a teenager, I think, and with a sweet sour kind of message, which is, look at this beautiful boy that's going to be your husband. However, he will be taken away from you early. Now, Lorna, this is kind of like, okay, why would you do one or the other? Because if you think rationally, you just think either you ignore and just look for another man, or you need incredible maturity not to want to fight what the angel has had as a vision, i.e., you get together, you're married, you have children, and then he will be taken from you. How was that for you? Take us through this journey, because that is quite special. I mean, it really moves me.
Well, I was actually 10. I wasn't a teenager.
Not even. Oh my God, a kid.
I was very, very young, and my dad and his friend, my dad always took me fishing, so I went fishing with them. And on this particular day, the angels had said, you're to go up along the river. There's someone for you to meet. And when they would say that, I knew it was another angel or a soul. It was something someone that I was to meet. And you have to remember, to me, the angels are my family. God is my family, just like they are yours as well. So I went up along the river, and the next minute, I just stopped, and I see this angel, this incredible angel, walking across the river. Now, this was a wide river. It wasn't just a tiny, narrow stream. And I was only 10, and as soon as he reached the shore, the first thing I said was, can I do that? Because I wanted to do what he had done.
Yeah, who doesn't want to walk on water?
Exactly. And he said no. And we sat down together on the bank on the grass. And he told me to look back across the river. He had something to show me. And I see this. I tried to describe it in the book, in Angels in My Hair, but I don't think I have really described it well enough. But the only description I can give is like silk or like, a fountain of water, but it's crystal clear, And that's what happened. And he said, I'm going to show you the young man you're to marry. So I didn't see another child. I saw actually a young man, and I kind of giggled and laughed. And Angel Elijah was saying that you will fall in love with him and have family and children. And I just thought this was very funny, like, fall in love, what's that? And get married. I hadn't the faintest idea. And he just said to me, but you won't grow old together. And I remember being annoyed. Why did you have to tell me that he won't grow old together, that he will die? And he just said to me he was going to put it to the back of my mind, and he put his hand to actually the back of my head. And it was like as if, maybe I can describe it in some way, as if all what he had shown me had gone to the back of my mind in that way. Because then when I was an adult and working in the petrol station, skipping forward, I see this young man walking up the road, and the scene is the very same. The trees were on the street and everything like that. Everything was the same as what I was shown. And I see this young man walking up. And of course I recognized him. Like, I kind of went, oh my God, what are you doing, God? What are you doing? And I even said to the secretary that was in the garage, because it was a big window, and you could see straight out. And I knew he was coming up to look for a job because my dad had advertised for a job. And I was praying, and I said to the lady the secretary, I said to her, I hope he doesn't get the job. Like, I didn't want him to get the job because I was meant to fall in love with this young man and get married and all of this. It was just so overwhelming. I kind of nearly ran in that way. But he came in. I always remember him coming in and into the office, and I standing there, my dad going out to him. He got the job just as it was said it would happen, and I suppose I was very shy. I did my best to avoid him. I'm telling you more in that sense, to avoid him and not to talk. But sometimes I would have to go around to the canteen to make tea for my dad and the secretary and bring it around. So that's how we got to say hello. And we did marry, and I had 4 beautiful children, but God did take Joe home to heaven, and I give out to him about that all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine, you see, and I think also in my conversations about angel and guardian angels, you always get that very, it's a legitimate question, Lorna. So if you have a guardian angel, why do bad things happen to you? Why do you do stupid things? Why the war in Ukraine? Why the earthquake now in Turkey and Syria? And it is always this question we've always had about, if there's a God and he really loves us and he wants only the best for us, why does so much, such a perfect storm is always somehow that we are navigating, and we will get, a slingshot that we will not be able to avoid. How do you make peace with that? I mean, how does that make sense?
I think it's very hard for everyone to make peace with that, and even myself, because I give out to God and the angels, but we have free will. And I know a lot of the bad things that happen, I hate to say it, but they're man-made. We cause them ourselves. But just like Noah dying, he did nothing.
Yeah, that's the point.
But yet his life affected all the school children in his school. He was so loving and so caring. He lived a full life, even though he was terminally ill. And then God did take him home to heaven. And I know his parents are still suffering his loss. There's no clear answer to that, except that we have free will. We don't have to, be poisoning our planet. We don't have to be causing starvation. We don't have to be causing wars. It's our choice. We can say no. But I think material things rule the world. And until we allow love to rule the world, and compassion and hope and empathy, we're not going to stop the bad things from happening.
Yeah. And I was when I was researching about you, I came across you actually having had like a premonition or a vision, or maybe even a message about things might be happening in the Ukraine. Right. And then when the news came out, it seems that you were, of course, kind of like you had the validation, but on the other hand, this was awful. I wonder with somebody like you that has these, let's call them gifts, Lorna. Okay, these special gifts.
Okay.
This kind of, I don't want to say you have a role or responsibility, but you could be a whistleblower. Question is one listened to or not? But this is better than the CIA intelligence, if you ask me, to have somebody that has a life worth of proof that they actually do have some real insights as an insight through the energies that surround us. Why does that not happen? Why does not a vision of a gifted person like you can help humanity to, avoid things like in the Ukraine, for example? Okay, you can't avoid the force majeure of an earthquake, but these man-made problems,
I suppose, again, it's because man has changed and says, that person is away with the fairies, in that.
Taken seriously, basically.
Yeah, you're not taken seriously. Yeah. I remember doing an article, I think it was a newsletter, something I did back a number of years ago for I do try to tell the world.
I can imagine. And
I do
great
that.
messages in your book.
But it's ignored. I think it was Iran, what would happen there. And actually only a friend recently that I hadn't seen for years turned around and said, Lorna, you were right. I didn't even know he had read it in that way. So I am given the messages and telling the world, we can change, and at the moment with what's happening in the world, we have to change. We're going to have no choice, and we're only making it harder for ourselves. But I think there's just so much greed there at the moment. Those that have don't want to share, but you have to share. You can't bring anything when your human body dies. You can't bring any material thing with you. You don't need material things.
Well, first of all,
so you should try and do good here. Make life good for others. Like, no child should be crying, no parent should be crying. Everyone should have work, should have, feel good about themselves, no matter what gifts they have. And we all have gifts. We all have loads and loads of gifts. And I would often say to people, don't wait till the moment of death when your body dies for you suddenly to realize, because you will at that very, very second or less than a second, you will know God is real. You will see your guardian angel. You will see all the souls of your loved ones, So don't wait till then. Why not let us start now and start to allow the intertwining of the body and soul to become one? And I've spoke about that in the books as well and at talks. Imagine if we allow that to happen, you don't get sick anymore. You don't grow old. You grow, but you don't grow old. Imagine, having all the comforts you need, but more than that, imagine you're not just seen through your human eyes anymore. You're seen through the eyes of your soul. And I've written a little about that, the children crossing the river without a bridge. Imagine we don't need to build bridges anymore, so we don't need to use cement anymore, and these children were so fascinated with what they could see that people don't see anymore because we only look.
Yes. I think there's a big difference between looking and seeing. It's between hearing and understanding, or hearing and listening, right? One is physical, the other one goes beyond. And I love exactly that. And I think that would have been my comment when you said, these people are full of greed and they can't get enough, paraphrasing now what you were saying. Yeah, but they are materialistically orientated. And of course, they judge everything by material, hence they seem to be limited by physicality. And this is why they limit themselves to what they can see, touch, produce, take away, or what have you, as in what you got. And just to allow for the freedom of going beyond, they need to, first of all, believe in it. They need to believe in God, not as a tool to kind of say, okay, you did bad, 10 Ave Marias and you're washed free from all your sins. But, as in, okay, so there's a different energy. I can also either transpire and also have my decisions guided by that kind of relationship with God or with the angels. And I think this is a very different approach to oneself, first of all, which then, reflects, I guess, in your actions. Lorna, we don't have a lot more time, but there's two fundamental questions I would definitely like to ask you. First of all, when I started reading your book, you have the dedication to your children. And in the acknowledgements, you write, I do thank my children, especially my youngest. First of all, my children, they keep me on planet Earth. That's great. Stay. We need you. Okay. And my youngest, basically, he kind of suffered, or he went through his own path story through you writing the book, or maybe the books. Can you tell us a little bit more what you actually meant?
Well, when my youngest, like my three older children, they were all teenagers when their dad died, but my youngest was only 4. So my youngest has, in a sense, grown up a bit different than my other 3 children. My 2 sons are the older ones, and then I have a daughter, and then the youngest is a daughter as well. So things were very difficult for her losing her dad. You know, it traumatized her and everything. And, you know, when she was at school and all things like that, she couldn't understand why, you know, the teachers would celebrate Father's Day when she had no father. She would come home and say they have no understanding. And this would be a 7 and an 8-year-old coming home, you know, and I would have to explain to her. And she would say, you know, I know my guardian angel is with me. And one little story I'll tell you real quick. I remember after her dad had died, I had gone to the Wicklow Mountains with her and her sister. Oh, her dad was alive. Her sister and the 3 of us were there, and we were kind of on a cliff part of the Wicklow Mountains, and it was lovely. And her dad went down with Megan's sister Ruth. I'm using the names in the book. And when they were coming back up, I saw Megan's guardian angel just opened up completely, you know. It was incredible. So me describing to her what her guardian angel looked like after her father died was a great help to her. And I have to say, she's a very, just like all my children, they're all very loving and caring. And I wouldn't be able to do what God and the angels have asked me only for them, you know. And again, you know, the strangers in the world that are giving a helping hand to spread the message. And like even the sanctuary is another miracle. Like, I have no money myself, like, because to me, all I need is a roof over my head, a bit of heat, water, you know, some food. I like, these clothes are done stores. I don't bother, you know. But it is to help people to change. I'm only doing what God has asked me to do. And you have listened. You got in touch to have me on your show. So you are listening.
Oh, I am.
You know, so God has you working too. You know,
lovingly so. I think there is, you know, it's a tough, you know, to crack the human nut is extremely hard. You know, to have them let their hair down and get ruffled by the angels is just not what you do. And I think there needs to be a lot more of that, definitely. But thank you so much. Yes, and I'm listening, and I'm extremely, you know, I'm an avid reader of all of these. You know, I believe in energy. At the end of the day, it's very simple. It's all about energy. Okay, and then how do you translate this energy? And then implement whatever you translated out of what you perceived through whatever senses. Last question, Lorna, how would you describe your perfect day?
My perfect day. To me, every day is perfect.
I love that.
Every day is perfect to me. I suppose I don't think like everyone else, and I find it very hard to live in the human world. You know, I would rather not. I think the human world is very confusing to me, because you have to remember God and the angels had protected me from the time I was an infant. So all of a sudden, when Angels in My Hair came out and doing what God said and being thrown out into the world, it's still alien to me. You know, that part I struggle with. And God wants me to, you know, the sanctuary came along, but he wants me to teach people, because we have to change, you know, but that's everyone's choice, everyone's free will. I can only play my part and the world has to play its part. One thing that God has always said to me and keeps reminding me, and that is, Lorna, many are chosen, many are called, but the few that are chosen, very few of them say yes. And he has proven that to me over and over again and again, which is very, very sad. But you said yes. And your listeners who are listening is saying yes. And to me, that's the miracle. Even if it's only one person, that's the miracle.
Yeah, I'm so with you. And the tagline of my show, Mentor It TV, is stay curious. And I think that the essence of living really is, if you stay curious, you always look to evolve, you look for something new, you have, open eyes, pricked ears, bushy tails. And this is how I go through my life ever since I'm little, having been an extremely wild child. People that know me today would not believe it, but I was like everywhere at the same time and interested in everything and always super infused, and just because I was so super curious, and I drilled deep and what have you. And that infantile streak in me, I love that. I will never give it up. But that is at the essence of being open to listen and to just take yourself back and say, hey, that's something totally new perspective, and not say, oh, I don't know this, can't be good. No. That's, oh, I don't know this. Let me see what it means. And then unjudgingly so. And I think that really opens a totally different world to yourself. I mean, you pigeonholing or judging is so restrictive. Not being interested is so restricting. So I think this is why, people like you ignite people that have a stay curious mindset, and then they listen and, help to facilitate. And I'm very, very honored that I could do that with you, Lorna.
Well, thank you. And hopefully I'll get to meet you.
Oh, definitely.
I would love that. That has to work out somehow. So
yes, I saw you're here in Zurich in October. I think at the beginning of October. I'll be here. I'll make sure I'm here. I think.
Yes, definitely. I look forward to that.
Yeah, my big one and my little one, because I only have one child, is going to university around that time. So she will be gone and I'll be free. Thank you so much for your time, Lorna. It's been an honor, a pleasure. Can't wait to see you and in person. Thanks to the device, I see you like this. And please continue whatever you're doing. And thank you to your children that they're supporting you so well in doing what your work is here in the real world.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm honored to have been on your show and for your listeners to be listening as well. And I just ask for all the blessings and the good things for your listeners, but for yourself and your children that are at university and everything, that, they'll be, what would you say, the spark of light of hope in the world, that goes bigger and bigger.
And they can be. Yes, absolutely. Yes. And they can be. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you, my dear Mentor It TV community. That's the book you want to get. Lorna Byrne has written other books. Angels in My Hair is her personal story. I still have goosebumps. And, to call her just a modern mystic is really not expressing what she's all about. Super special. And just a little, pinch of her in our own souls, I think, can change a lot. Not only for you, but for everybody. So make sure to stay curious, get the book, and I see you on the next show. Bye.
Together, we go out there. Together, we begin to share. Together, we find our way.